Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got hacked.
It's really painful.
But I'm back. I guess they gave me a 7-day rest period that I can now revel in, but I'm back even stronger. So glad that Black Logic is back.
Magic.
If not, I was going to start using the Black Post, but I've garnered a really good following on here. We're at 32,500 subscribers. So if you like Black Logic, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, but we're going to continue to put in the work. And just before I get really started here, I want to make sure I let you guys know I'm not getting on my Dane Calloway with this particular video. I'm not getting on my Dane Calloway. Absolutely not. But we're going to start off this video very strongly.
African Americans built this nation. You built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right?
Whose ingenuity, innovations, and labor play a critical role in American culture and infrastructure, including Alexander Miles, who invented automatic elevator doors in 1887, and Garrett Morgan, who invented the 3-light traffic signal in 1923. And our next guest is working to ensure that foundational Black Americans' contributions are known.
Now, the first question I have is the guy that's reporting this story, is he a foundational Black American? Because the way he just said, and foundational Black Americans, absolutely no. I don't know.
Before the modern day toilet, the can, the pot, the throne, the john, whatever you call it, going to the bathroom used to be messy, uncomfortable, it smelled bad, and it could also spread disease. All that began to change because the foundational Black American invented the modern indoor toilet, and his name was Thomas Elkin.
Yeah, thank goodness for Thomas Elkin. And that is just one of many videos made by author and creator of Foundational Black American Legacy, Teresa Allman. She joins me now. Teresa, hey, thank you so much for your time. But I was curious, what inspired you to make videos spotlighting foundational Black Americans?
Alex, this goes back a few years ago when I was in kindergarten, and it was my first Columbus Day in school, and I was very excited. I sat there and I was allowed to share something. And what I told the class was that my father said that Columbus did not discover America because people were already here. And I don't remember what happened. That was quite a while ago. But I do remember feeling that his story may not be accurate or truthful.
Of course, we know that to be true today, but what's most important is that foundational Black American, our lineage, okay, not a group, but our lineage is getting notoriety, is getting popularity even from mass media. So that's a good thing. Again, recognition is always a good thing, but just like President Trump stated that we had a massive part of building the foundation, we all built it. Yeah, those people came later nonetheless. But what we're doing here is building the foundation of reason why reparations is so damn important and why reparations has yet to be cut to foundational Black Americans. There are some other things that is going to be revealed during this video as well that I want you guys to stay tuned. I won't be for you long, but we're going to get to this work because I really want to start with the part that's going to get clipped, reposted, and misquoted by somebody's cousin with a microphone in a dream, because that's what usually happens when it comes to my work. Not every foundational Black American can claim native land right now, because this was really about land is power, especially in the United States of America, where most people, believe it or not, with the exception of the quote unquote Siberian Native Americans, can actually own their land. Here's my example. If you guys own a home like I do and you don't pay your property tax, tell me what happens to your land. I know that you guys know the government takes it. Not every foundational Black American can claim native land right now. And if that was true, the entire real estate market would be a tent city by Wednesday, because we'll all be claiming our land. But here's what is true, and it's still explosive in most regards. Some Black families, especially those with documented Indigenous ancestry who were erased on paper, are getting citizenship rights restored, and in some cases, land rights reopened, because courts are enforcing treaties and property law. And that's not woke, because that's what people say, oh, that's woke, that's DEI. They just come up with anything that they could possibly just like, yeah, I forgot. Doesn't matter. But that's not a protest. That's not political favor. That's law. The same code, born deadly language America respects more than human life. This is the part America hates because it breaks the myth that Black Americans have no claim to this land except we were brought here. No, some were brought here, but some were already here. Some of us, again, were already in this land prior to 1619. We have records up to 1526. And when those Spanish conquistadors, Vasquez and others, stated that they ran off into the jungle and into the woods, that people that look like them. Some of us were already here folding into native nations and then reclassified out of existence so land could be extracted. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a paper trail, and the system is panicking because they love talking about reparations like it's a fantasy novel. You'll never get reparations. You'll never get your land back. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I said land back. You never had land. But the treaties need to be enforced. Treaty enforcement is the part where the government can't say that was a long time ago. Because in McGrick versus Oklahoma in 2020, the Supreme Court basically said if Congress didn't clearly end the promise still stands. That's the legal energy behind what's happening. We have to hold them to their word, especially when it's in black and white.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Now, when we talk about racial reclassification as a weapon, when we look at the information that's provided, the U.S. built a racial system where blackness equal property status and indigenous equal political status. So what happens when you want the land, but you don't want to honor the people? You do what America does best, do you not? You change the paperwork. The census says Indian, vital record says colored, marriage license says mulatto, court record says Negro, and now poof, those damn treaties. Protections get easier to ignore because the state can pretend the Indian owner that doesn't exist. Virginia is a loud example, by the way, because the state's Racial Integrity Act of 1924 and the actions of Registrar Walter Plecker are widely documented for reclassifying Native people as colored, attacking tribal identity in records. That's not just racism, that's asset conversion. It's like turning gold into miscellaneous metal so you can steal it a lot easier.
Fact.
Now, let's really bring in the why this works legally part. Because you have treaties like the Treaty of the Dancing Rabbit Creek of 1830 dealing with the Choctaw, the Treaty of the New Ectar of 1835 that's dealing with the Cherokee. They were not symbolic, they were binding agreements. And then federal policies like the Dawes Act, which was the General Allotment Act in 1887 that broke communal land into allotments and reshaping ownership structures. You also have the Curtis Act of 1898 that weakened tribal government courts in Indian territory and extended allotment structures into the 5 tribes context. And then this part is very crucial. You have post-Civil War treaties of 1866 with several tribes included provisions about citizenship for freedmen and their descendants. It's a huge legal battleground, especially in Oklahoma. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has a fresh report laying out how these treaties address citizens' rights. So what's the core legal idea in regards to this? Tribal citizenship and treaty rights are political. They're not racial. That's why courts keep coming back to where your ancestors citizens at the moment the rights attach, not what shade you are today. But that's how they kind of wiggle themselves out of things by racializing and categorizing things by race and not by the treaty of the people who was on that land. So let's translate that correctly, because here's the truth according, to the numbers, and these numbers can be real, but the phrase is misleading because courts are gifting land, because courts can quiet title. They can declare rightful ownership. They can reopen probate when transfer were fraudulent or legally defective. They can unwind deeds if the chain of title is poisoned. They can restore rights tied to citizenship status, allotment rules, or trust obligations.
It's huge.
If any original allotment was and said whether it be 40, 80, 160 acres, those figures show up repeatedly in allotment history, and multiple family interests get consolidated, and you can see large totals. But here's the part that is political theater really ignores, in my opinion.
What?
This is not Black Americans' claim native land. No. This is specific families with probable lineage and probable legal injury bring specific actions in specific jurisdiction.
What the hell is that?
It's precision work, not a TikTok spell, okay? Now, we get to the most current, most contested battlefield. Freedmen descendants and citizenship rights in tribes like the Cherokee and the Muscogee, also known as the Creek. Now, Cherokee, if you guys are familiar with the Cherokee Nation versus Nash back in 2017, not that long ago, it is a real federal case in which the Treaty of 1866 and citizenship rights are central. Now, in 2021, there were major developments in the Cherokee governance courts reaffirming treaty-based citizenship rights. The Department of Interior publicly described the Treaty of 1866 as guaranteeing rights coextensive with other citizens that belonging to the Muscogee Creek. There were major recent rulings and major political conflict about implementation because the Muscogee Nation Supreme Court affirmed citizenship for Freedmen descendants in 2025. Now we're coming home right here. But before that, let's break up the monotony of me just raining down a bunch of information so you guys could possibly, I'm not on my dang Callaway, by the way, some of you, not all of us, could possibly reclaim a lot of the land that the government and other private businesses stole from your ancestors. Now let's listen to this. This is one of my great buddies I've been knowing for a long time. He has a huge following out there on Instagram. You guys follow Rob Perry, Garage Talk. But this particular video kind of coincides with what I've been telling people for a very long time.
Let me say this for the last time. I made a video, this shit was probably a month ago, and people still sending me nasty DMs, life threats and shit like that because I made a video and I said people should stop telling other cultures that they need to go back where they're from. And in the video, I said, when you talk about America, Black people are from here originally. And, you know, as far as the first people here. And people got their panties in a bunch like, well, what do you mean? Native Americans came from Africans. People don't know, but the Black, dark-skinned Africans are the first people, not just in America, they're the first people everywhere. Everywhere. And a lot of people think when I say that it's racist or whatever, but it's just the fucking truth. Now because I say the truth, why the fuck is everybody getting all offended and shit? It's the fucking truth. You think I'm lying? Google the shit. I don't talk about shit I believe. I talk about shit that I know. And so if you Google or ChatGPT, whatever resource you want, just ask it, who were the first people on the planet? Where did they originate from? And what did they look like? And it's going to tell you they're dark-skinned African people. And so if that's why it's called the motherland, because that Africa is the mother of everything. We are all connected biologically, all people. And so when you talk about go back there, whatever, this is where we're from.
Exactly what we've been saying for such a long time. Everybody is from Africa. You have different adaptations, people moving out, people phenotype changes, everything about people's body constructions. That's why when we say that foundational Black Americans have been on this land for hundreds of years prior to even 1526, people like, where the documentation, where the records? You just have to understand history in some regards of that, but I'm not going to even get on that because I want to get back on this land that has been reconstituted to some foundational Black Americans, because we were talking about how the Muscogee Nation Supreme Court affirmed citizenship for Freedmen descendants in 25. Now, the chief issued an executive order halting tribal IDs for Freedmen descendants amid review. And that was also reported by the Associated Press. And why does this matter for land that a lot of people may be asking? Because citizenship can affect, because if you're not obtaining citizenship with that particular tribe, and a lot of these chiefs who are these $5 Indians or these people from Siberia, they don't want Black folk, foundational Black America to reclaim their land. It can affect eligibility for certain programs, recognition in tribal structures, standing in disputes that are tied to treaty era rights.
Immediately regret this decision.
It doesn't automatically equal here's your acreage, but it can be a pillar and broader legal strategy depending on facts and jurisdiction. We're talking about land, which is the most powerful thing in this land next to the fiat, which is the dollar. Now, let me not, step on some toes. And if I do, with steel toe boots. America loves diversity, even though you see a lot of white nationalists stating that they don't. But they only love diversity when it's cultural. America hates diversity when it becomes legal standing because culture is cheap. Standing is expensive. Recognition is cheap. Money is expensive. Assimilation is often sold to Black people like salvation. Just integrate, just blend in, just perform respectability, and you'll be protected. But when we look at this, when land is on the line, the system will change our identity like a password reset.
Oh my God.
Here's my opinion. The native land conversation is political theater until we talk archives. Not my grandmother said, not we got cheekbones, we got Cherokee blood. No, you need to have records, census, tribal rolls, church registries, land patents, probate files, court actions, because the state's favorite trick is this. If you can't prove it on paper, they'll call it a folklore. You guys are just lying. You guys always want free stuff. You welfare kings and queens. Y'all talking about some reparations. I just want our tax dollars. You want free this and free that. That's why you got to have records and probate files. You got to have all this information to stake and prove your claim. Because if you prove it on paper, they'll call it a loophole. If you win in a court, they'll call it unfair.
Just 1 minute of silence.
America is consistent. And I'll give it that because there's always something, is it not? Courts don't return land because your story is powerful. You may have a powerful, heart-wrenching story, make everyone cry. They act when people can prove a chain of legal facts, often including, a right attached to an ancestor treaty provision statute, allotment agreement, a trust status, proof of descendancy, records linking you to that ancestors, whether it be on rolls, registries, probate, census, etc., proof of harm in improper transfer, fraud, improper probate, tax foreclosure issues, guardianship abuse, broken trust obligation. It depends on the case with all this legal jargon, because you really gonna need a really good lawyer, by the way, if you're not one yourself. You need to have a viable claim, a quiet title, a probate reopening, partition errors, property litigation, treaty enforcement arguments. This is why some families win, not because the courts are being nice, because someone did the boring, backbreaking work. They had archives, they got great attorneys, and they had patience. And hearing about this, it really messes up everybody's favorite lazy storylines. It messes up white America's "you don't belong here" propaganda. It messes up liberal America's "just vote" sermon. It messes up grifters who prefer emotion over documentation. It messes up some gatekeepers who treat citizenship like a private club and enforces one uncomfortable truth. Racial categories in America were engineered partially to control land. So when people reverse the paper trail, they reverse a piece of that machine.